Today we're going to do a variation on a classic comfort food, enchilada casserole. This is going to be a veggie enchilada casserole, so the basis is a veggie enchilada casserole, but we're going to add in some hamburger as well. So we'll start by preparing our zucchini and throwing everything into our big mixing bowl. The other thing that I'm going to do is double this recipe so we can do a bake one and take one, or you could go ahead and freeze the other one. First we'll start by chopping up our zucchini into small pieces. Since we're doubling, I have 2 zucchinis here. Our oven is preheated. If you have a picky eater, you could put this through a shredder and a food processor, or you could really try and chop it up pretty fine. We'll move on to our bundle of green onions. We're going to use the whole bundle since we're doubling our recipe. And lastly, half a bundle of cilantro. I'm going to pull the tops off of the cilantro just to avoid getting some of that stem in there. Okay, that's about half of our cilantro bundle, so we'll just give this a few chops. We'll go ahead and add that into our bowl as well. Next, I'm going to add in my beans. This is approximately 2 cups. The recipe calls for 2 cans of beans. That may be more than what we're using, but we're also adding hamburger meat, so it won't really matter that there's less beans. And add our hamburger meat. Nice tip is when you buy hamburger meat, go ahead and cook it. If you know you're not going to use it in something like a meatloaf, because it's really convenient just to be able to pull this out of the freezer, frozen in some bags, just to add it right into our recipe. I've recently seen that as a tip on social media. However, that's nothing new to me. My mom has been doing that for as long as I can remember, where she would fix a couple pounds of hamburger meat knowing that she would refreeze one of them as cooked hamburger when she needed it. Okay. Next we'll add in 2 cups of frozen corn. And 2 cans of diced green chilies. And half a teaspoon of salt. And we'll start mixing this up. I've sprayed my 2 pans, the pan I'm going to keep and the pan I'm going to give away. So I'm going to start just ladling it in. I'm just going to place a thin layer. And I'm using a store-bought canned sauce. The recipe includes a recipe for sauce specifically as well. For convenience sake, I'm going to use a can. Next, we'll place tortillas. Just basic corn tortillas in the package. The pan size that they say is a 9 by 9. I have an 8 by 8 and a 7.5 by 7.5. So my ratios may be a little off, but I think it'll be just fine. Next we'll add our vegetable mix, well, our filling, I guess you'd say. Add some cheese. And we'll continue the process. Because my pans are smaller, I'm packing it down a little more densely, just because we want to make sure that we get all of this goodness in here. And the zucchini will probably shrink up a little bit just because they're a fresh vegetable. Because I have so much sauce left, I'm going to go ahead and pour over sauce on this layer, and then I'll also put some on top of our tortillas when we cover it up and then put cheese on top. That's about half of the can. Okay, now we'll cover with cheese and put one in the freezer and one in the oven. Now into the oven for 40 to 45 minutes at 350 degrees. 40 minutes later, it's bubbling, it's toasty on top. I think this one smells like a winner. I bet it'll taste like one too. Enjoy your enchilada casserole.